All right, you there. Yeah, you. Sit down. Or don't, because free will and all that jazz. Anyway, I'm about to tell you the story of how I became the chosen one. Spoiler alert, it's not that impressive. If you're expecting dragons, epic battles, ancient prophecies written in blood, lower your standards. Lower? Nope. Even lower than that. And there you go. Perfect. Keep it right there. Okay. Now that I've crushed your expectations, let's actually start. First things first. My kingdom, I know, kingdom sounds fancy, like shining castles, heroic knights, maybe a decent healthcare system. Spoiler, it's a dump. Our royal capital, it's literally a strip mall with delusions of grandeur. We have a grand keep. It's my apartment building. Concrete slabs, peeling paint, the smell of disappointment baked in by the sun. A real architectural love letter to we gave up halfway. They tried to dress it up with banners once. One breeze later, and the all hail our glorious realm sign ripped in half and read all our honestly accurate. We've got a castle, if you can call it that. It's a Burger King with an actual plastic crown nailed to the sign. It's where our so-called nobility hold court over discounted whoppers. We also have a moat. Ooh, technically, it's a drainage ditch that floods when it rains. If you're lucky, you'll spot a possum in there, looking disappointed with its life choices. You still with me? Good. Don't worry, I'll keep you entertained. It's the least I can do since you're sacrificing your precious time listening to me overshare. Now, let's talk about me. The Chosen One. Big title, right? Sounds important, epic, legendary. Ha! I'm basically the kingdom's last choice. Literally. Not even the backup. I'm the backup to the we'll figure it out later plan. I used to work in a call center. Truly the training ground for heroes. Nothing says prepared for combat like arguing with a man named Todd about why his password has to have a capital letter. My boss told me to smile with my voice. I asked if the pay came with dental. It didn't. But I did get a warning from HR about my attitude problem. They were right. My attitude sucks. But in my defense, I'm poor, overworked, and allergic to bullshit. Anyway, one day I come home after another soul-sucking shift. My legs hurt. My spirit hurts. I'm trying to decide if dinner is ramen or just dry cereal with existential dread. And there it is, the prophecy. But wait for it, because this is the part that really sells the grandeur. It's not an ancient scroll, no glowing runes, no wizened old wizard with a beard long enough to sweep the floor. Nope, it's a flyer. Bright neon paper. Comic Sans. I'm pretty sure it was printed at the same place that does party invitations for toddlers. It said, Hero needed. Great benefits. Must start immediately. Benefits, by the way, were listed as adventure, unpaid, of course. Glory, not at all guaranteed. Free pizza at the orientation. Oh, that pizza. We'll get there. Now, you're probably thinking, dude, why did you even go? Excellent question. Very astute of you. Short answer, I'm broke. 3 months behind on rent, landlord leaving increasingly threatening post-it notes on my door. Latest one said, pay up or I'm renting to the raccoons. And honestly, the raccoons would be better tenants. At least they're organized. But let's not get sidetracked. Actually, let's get sidetracked. It's my story. You ever been so desperate you start seriously considering spam emails? That was me. Except this wasn't even an email. It was a flyer so cheap the ink smudged when I picked it up. I think I still have a neon pink H on my thumb. So yeah, I went. orientation day. Hero orientation. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Like maybe a training hall, weapons lined up, torchlight flickering, gruff instructor screaming about honor. No, it was in a church basement, smelled like old coffee and shame. 2 folding chairs and a table that wobbled so badly it was practically interpretive dancing. And the pizza. Oh, the pizza. They promised free pizza, which technically was true, but it was the saddest, stalest, coldest slice of pepperoni I've ever had the misfortune to chew through. I'm convinced it was donated by someone who didn't want to carry it home. The recruiter? A dude in a foam chest plate that barely fit over his gut. I swear he bought it at a Halloween store clearance sale. He didn't even look like he wanted to be there, which, fair, I didn't either. He hands me a waiver. Sign here to accept your destiny. My destiny apparently included waiving all liability for bodily harm, death, emotional damage, and, no joke, magical mishaps. I asked him what that meant. He shrugged. Legal told us to include it after the last guy. So, there I am, standing in this damp basement that smelled like wet cardboard and broken dreams, holding a waiver that frankly read like a threat with legal disclaimers. And I'm thinking to myself, this is how I die. Not even in battle, just of food poisoning from discount pizza. But hey, like I said, rent was due. Eviction was imminent. My landlord already had a family of raccoons on standby with a signed lease. Honestly, I did not blame him. Raccoons are at least consistent with their rent. Paid in trash? Sure. But who's judging? I'll be real with you. I didn't even read the whole waiver. Life's too short. Well, it's about to get a lot shorter, apparently. I skimmed. Something about binding magical contract and heroic obligations as determined by the realm, which is always a good sign. But it also said free pizza. So obviously my priorities were in order. So I signed. I didn't even use my real signature, just scribbled something that vaguely looked like a drunk spider learning cursive. The recruiter looked at it, stamped it with a big red "Approved," and handed me a badge. Yes, a badge. Made of laminated paper with "Chosen One" written in what I'm pretty sure was crayon. Nothing says "Epic Destiny" like a poorly laminated arts and crafts. He gestured to the rest of the room like Vanna White revealing a used car. Except there was nothing there except more chairs and disappointment. "Congratulations," he said, completely dead inside. "You're the chosen one. Don't die. Next." That was the entire ceremony. No chanting, no celestial light descending from the heavens, just a bored guy yelling, "Next!" to the empty room behind me. Because, you see, I was the only one who showed up. Let's pause on that. The only one. Because apparently, no one else in this entire kingdom was willing to risk their life for stale pizza in an unpaid internship. Weird, right? Honestly, the more I think about it, the smarter everyone else seems. But the recruiter didn't care. He checked a box on his clipboard, probably marked "sucker located." Then he handed me my welcome packet, which was literally just a single sheet of paper with "good luck" printed in bold, menacing Arial. At this point, I tried to ask questions. Like, normal ones. What exactly am I supposed to do? Is there a training program? How many people have died doing this? The recruiter just yawned and told me to read the facts and questions. There was no facts and questions. He just didn't want to talk to me. So I did the only logical thing. I asked about the pizza. He pointed to the table. The box was half empty and the remaining slices looked like they'd fought in a war and lost. I took one anyway, because poverty is humbling. And also because self-respect is for people who can afford groceries. I bit into it. It made a sound. Not a good sound. Like if regret had texture. But it was free. And by free, I mean it only cost me my freedom and probable mortality. At this point, you might be wondering, why didn't you just leave? Good question. Very responsible of you. Short answer, I was already in too deep. I'd signed the waiver, taken the pizza, I'd been stamped, approved. Also, they blocked the exit with caution tape that read, no refunds. So I did what any rational, intelligent, desperate for rent money adult would do. I sat in the folding chair and waited for instructions. Spoiler, there weren't any. There were not any. He handed me a tiny booklet. It was titled, Your Epic Quest and You, a Beginner's Guide. 16 pages. Half of them were blank. One page just had, Don't Panic, written in giant font. Another page was dedicated to a coupon for 10% off at the local sword shop, which was generous, except I had $3.75 in my bank account, and most of that was already earmarked for ramen. The training portion of orientation was just the recruiter reading the entire waiver out loud in a monotone voice while picking his nose. Highlights included, may encounter dragons, not responsible for injuries caused by magical beasts. Property damage must be paid in full. No union representation. I raised my hand. He ignored it, of course, so I kept it raised out of spite. He eventually called on me like a teacher who hates their job. What about the benefits package? He blinked at me, looked at the waiver. Free pizza. That was it. That was the entire compensation plan. I pressed him. What about hazard pay? He flipped through the waiver. It says here you're assuming all hazard. Great. Fantastic. Truly, an enlightened labor model. By now, I'm pretty sure you're thinking, wow, you sound like a complete idiot for going through with this. Fair. Totally fair. But let me ask you, you ever been so broke you consider selling plasma, your grandma's antique furniture, and possibly, just possibly, your soul for rent money? I was at that point, except even my soul was overdrawn. So yes, I signed. I accepted my destiny, and I ate another slice of that sad pizza because if you're gonna sell out, you might as well carbon load. After the reading of the waiver, the recruiter slapped a sticker on my chest, not even a pin, a sticker. It said, hello, my name is Chosen One, in Sharpie. The N was backwards. They didn't even try. He took a photo for the records. I smiled like a hostage holding today's newspaper. Pretty sure I blinked too. Even the camera seemed embarrassed. Then he cleared his throat and said in the most half-assed ceremonial voice I've ever heard, by the powers vested in me by the Grand Council, who are currently on lunch break, I hereby pronounce you the Chosen One. Please exit through the side door. And that was it. No fanfare, no music, no slow motion montage. Just me, a crumpled waiver, a greasy napkin, and the dawning realization that I'd made the worst career decision of my life. But I wasn't totally unprepared. Oh no. They gave me a hero's starter kit. I know. You're thinking fancy armor, enchanted weapons, a map to hidden treasure. Please, don't be naive. Inside the battered cardboard box was a plastic sword, spray-painted silver, still tacky to the touch. A shield, which was literally a trash can lid with duct tape. A map drawn in crayon on the back of a takeout menu. Menu wasn't even good. And a whistle in case I got lost, which, let's be honest, I was already emotionally lost. I held up the plastic sword. It bent, stayed bent, didn't even have the decency to snap and put me out of my misery. I asked the recruiter, is this real? Like, is this the sword of legend? He shrugged. Budget cuts. I tried to give it back. He refused. Company policy, no refunds. Also, it's yours now, spiritually. Spiritually? He didn't even have a brand name. It just said, toy sword, in all caps. Next up, the map. This was a work of art. Crayon lines, landmarks like, here be dragons, with a little smiley face. One section just labeled, probably death. Another corner had a doodle of what I think was supposed to be a unicorn but looked like a horse with a tumor. I pointed at it. This seems non-standard. Recruiter, we encourage improvisation. Oh, do you now? Great. Because nothing says successful quest like improvisation with a bent toy sword and an existential crisis. I glanced at the trash can lid shield. It was sticky. I didn't even bother to ask why. I still don't want to know. But the whistle was cool. Bright orange, labeled emergency use only, like blowing it would summon the entire might of the kingdom. Spoiler, it didn't. It didn't even work right. I tried it later, and it just wheezed like an asthmatic guinea pig. Anyway, at this point, the recruiter looked at me with the dead eyes of someone who lost hope years ago. Any questions? I had so many, but I knew none of them would help, so I just asked the most important one. Is there really a prophecy? He blinked. Define prophecy. Not a great start. He fumbled with a stack of papers, pulled one out that looked like it had been printed off an ancient dot matrix printer. It had a bold title, The Prophecy. Trademarked, actual TM symbol. Beneath it, in what appeared to be Times New Roman, one shall rise when no one else applies. That was the entire thing. One sentence. Not even a rhyme, no dramatic pause, nothing. I asked if there was more. He flipped the paper over. Blank. It's concise, he said. No room for misinterpretation. Concise. Yeah, that's one word for it. Another word would be bullshit. I sighed. A long, resigned exhale of someone who knows they're about to ruin their own life for the promise of exactly nothing. But what choice do I have? It was either this or move back in with my parents. And I'd rather take my chances with dragons, even imaginary ones. So I took the box, my sticky trash can lid, my limp plastic sword, my ridiculous crayon map, and I left through the side door. It creaked. Of course it did. Because, of course, destiny doesn't use the front door. Outside it was raining. Naturally, because the universe has a sense of humor. Not a dramatic, torrential, cinematic rain either. No, it was that depressing, half-committed drizzle that feels like the sky is spitting on you out of boredom. My hero of legend moment. Standing there in the parking lot of St. Stephen's Community Center, clutching a sagging cardboard box while my badge peeled off my chest in the damp. Truly iconic. I looked at the map. One corner was already dissolving in the rain, the crayon smeared into a beautiful abstract interpretation of despair. If you squinted, it could be modern art. Title it, Destiny is Overrated. Auction it for $1 million. Fund my rent for a week. So I did what any newly minted chosen one would do. I sat on the curb, in the rain, eating the last slice of pizza I'd taken for the road. It was somehow even worse cold, hard as a rock, tasted like regret and questionable cheese. But it was free, and that made it taste. Actually, no, that didn't help. It still sucked. I remember watching cars go by, people living their lives, warm, dry, blissfully unaware of the kingdom's dire need. If it was so dire, why was I the only advocate? I couldn't even get a reference check. No background screening, just sign the waiver, ate the pizza. Congratulations, you're our last hope. Listen, I'm not saying I'm unqualified, but I'm definitely not saying I am qualified. My most impressive skill at that point was remembering my streaming passwords without writing them down, and even that was iffy. Honestly, the recruiter didn't even seem to care who they hired. He could have stamped the chosen one on literally anyone. Your grandma, your dog, a half-deflated pool float. As long as you could hold a pen and not ask too many questions, you're in. I think that's when it really hit me. This wasn't some grand destiny. And it also wasn't a calling from the gods. This was a staffing crisis. The kingdom didn't want a hero. They wanted a warm body willing to hold the liability. Someone they could throw at the problem and blame it if it went wrong. And apparently, that was me. But what was I supposed to do? Quit? Go back to the call center? Field more angry rants from Chad who couldn't remember his password because he used 1234 for everything? No thanks. At least being the chosen one had potential. Slim, dangerous, lethal, but potential. So I made a decision. Probably the dumbest, bravest decision of my life. I stood up, wiped the rain off my face, adjusted my trash can lid shield, and swore a solemn oath. Fine. If I'm gonna be the hero, I'm gonna own it. Even if it kills me. Pause. Which it probably will. Then I realized I was saying this out loud in the middle of a parking lot, while the family was unloading groceries and staring at me like I was auditioning for Local Man Has Breakdown. The dad hustled his kids away. The mom gave me the pity nod. You know the one. Good for you, sweetie. Hope you get the help you need. Anyway, I left the parking lot in dramatic fashion, by which I mean I slipped on wet asphalt and nearly broke my ass. Because destiny doesn't come with non-slip shoes. I regained my balance. Sort of. Did a half bow to the gawking family. Your kingdom is safe with me. The kid cried. Great first impression. Then I started the long walk home. Through the rain. Trash can lid on one arm. Plastic sword tucked under the other. Crayon map pressed to my chest to keep it from melting. I looked like a dollar store knight who'd lost it all, and his dignity was on clearance. And let me tell you, on that walk, I had time to think. About my life choices. About rent. About how bad that pizza had been. Oof. About what exactly the job description for chosen one even entailed. The flyer hadn't said much. Save the realm is pretty vague, you know? Save it from what? Bad Yelp reviews? Economic collapse? A raccoon uprising? Honestly, if the raccoons took over, I'd welcome our new trash-based overlords. At least they have a plan. But no, it had to be me. The kingdom's last choice. The underdog. The guy too stubborn or too stupid to walk away. And you know what? There's something kind of noble in that. Not very noble, but enough to get me through the door. So when I got home, soaked and shivering, I spread the map out on my kitchen counter, which immediately ruined it because my counter is uneven and had a puddle from a leaky pipe. Now, the death zone just looked like a Rorschach test. But that's fine. I've always been good at improvising. I sat there for hours, staring at it, eating cold ramen, plastic sword on my lap, trash can lid propped against my chair like an insult. And I planned. Planned badly, but planned. Because if you're going to fail spectacularly, you might as well put in some effort. So there I was, drenched, humiliated, hyped up on soggy carbs and spite, carefully plotting my epic quest in the dead of night, which consisted of staring at a smudged crayon map, Googling how to be a hero, realizing I couldn't afford any of the recommended gear. Seriously, have you priced a real sword lately? Even the cheap ones cost more than my entire checking account balance, which, for the record, was approximately $7.18 at that point, most of which was pending in ramen purchases. So I made do. Duct taped the trash can lid for reinforcement, Sharpened the toy sword with a nail file, which did absolutely nothing but make me feel committed. Practiced my battle cry in the mirror until my upstairs neighbor banged on the floor to shut up. I'm the chosen one! Bang, bang, bang! Shut the hell up! Truly inspiring. But here's the thing. Even with all that, I was weirdly determined. Because as pathetic as it was mine. My quest, my destiny, my terrible, poorly planned shot at something that wasn't answering phones for people who forgot their own names. Look, I'm not saying I had delusions of grandeur, but maybe mild hallucinations of adequacy. Enough to get me moving. So I stayed up all night, making lists, drawing routes, imagining scenarios which I didn't immediately die. Like, if dragon, real, throw pizza crust as distraction. If cursed forest, haunted, pretend you're a ghost too. If bandits, negotiation, offer to split my debts with them. Solid strategy. 10 out of 10, would die anyway. But that's what you do, right? You plan for failure and hope for dumb luck. Classic hero move. Worked for half the legends in our history, or so I told myself between existential crisis. Morning came, gray, grim, and overcast. Perfect quest weather. I got up, put on my armor, layers of thrift store flannel because that's all I owned. Strapped the trash can lid to my arm with bungee cords. Shoved the plastic sword through my belt loop like a deranged Renaissance fair reject. I looked in the mirror and just started laughing. Because you know what? It was so fucking stupid. So absurd. But it was real. I was actually doing this. I practiced my speech for when someone asked what I was doing. Saving the kingdom. Wrench to. Short, honest, effective. And when I stepped outside, I half expected the recruiter to be waiting with a real sword, a real map, and maybe an actual plan. Nope. Silence, rain puddles, birds that sounded like they were mocking me on purpose. It hit me that there was no one to tell me how to do this. No mentor, no wise old sage. Just me. Which is horrifying. And kind of freeing? Because it meant there was no rules. No one to tell me I was doing it wrong. Except probably everyone I met. But who cares? So I set off. One foot in front of the other, crayon map tucked under my arm, trash can shield creaking, plastic sword occasionally poking me in the leg. Heroic as shit. I passed neighbors taking out their trash. They nodded politely but wouldn't make eye contact. Probably afraid they'd catch whatever mental illness I clearly had. One kid yelled, "Cool costume!" I gave him a thumbs up. Thanks. It's not a phase. It's a financially motivated lifestyle choice. He just blinked. His mom hustled him inside. I didn't care. Okay, I cared a little, but I just kept going. Because here's the thing about being the chosen one. It doesn't mean you're ready. It doesn't mean you're worthy. It just means no one else volunteered. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. I mean, sure, the prophecy was one sentence long and probably written by an intern on their lunch break. The recruiter didn't even bother to hide his disdain. My equipment was better suited to LARPing in someone's backyard. But the kingdom needed a hero, or at least someone too stubborn to say no. And apparently, that was me. So yeah, call it desperation, call it courage, call it a series of catastrophic personal decisions. But I was doing it. For the kingdom. For my rent. For the pizza coupon they promised me at the end. Mostly for the pizza coupon. And that's how I became the chosen one. No fanfare, no destiny written in the stars. Just a broke, pissed off, semi-employed 20-something with nothing better to do. But hey, at least I wouldn't be doing it alone. Because apparently, even the worst quests require a party. And let me tell you, mine? Oh, you're gonna love them. But that's a story for next time.